So we're actually tracking quite well in regards to time, but we'll move to the next learned speaker, which is Martin DELAHUNTY. So Martin is the director of Inspiring STEM, an independent publishing consultancy. Inspiring STEM provides publishing strategy, business development, and training services to science publishers, universities, pharmaceutical companies, and publishing science providers. A core focus of his is open science, publishing principles, and best practices. Martin is a former global director at Springer Nature with over 30 years of science publishing experience, especially in training in the Association of Learned and Professional Society Publishers. He is a past secretary of the International Society of the Medical Publication Professionals and a Medical Communication Special Interest Group member of the European Medical Writers Association. So over to you, Martin.
Vikram, thank you very much for that kind introduction, and welcome everybody again to this great conference, and thank you to the Asian Council for inviting me to give a presentation. So let me share my screen. Okay. So my talk today is on safeguarding research integrity and addressing the ethical issues in scholarly publishing. So let's first begin by defining what we mean by research integrity. So research integrity is an essential aspect of scientific publishing that ensures the accuracy, reliability, and credibility of research findings. It encompasses a wide range of ethical and professional standards, including honesty, transparency, and accountability. And it's a primary component of research integrity is the use of rigorous methods and proper scientific content to produce high quality research. And in this context, we expect research authors to demonstrate that they have conducted experiments and collected data in a manner that is accurate, unbiased, and reproducible, to ensure responsible and ethical use of human and animal subjects in research, to disclose any conflicts of interest, financial or otherwise, that may influence the research. And we have a number of organizations that are helping us to set standards for research integrity. For example, we have the World Medical Association and the Declaration of Helsinki, which is a set of ethical principles for medical research involving human subjects. We have the All European Academies producing a European Code of Conduct for Research Integrity. We have the UK Research Integrity Office. And very importantly, we have the International Committee for Medical Journal Editors, providing a rich source of ethical and best practice guidelines for editors and for publications. And also the Committee on Publication Ethics, which has contributed very significantly over the past 20 years in helping publishers, authors, editors, and reviewers to address some of the significant challenges in academic publishing. And COPE, along with the Directory of Open Access Journals, the Open Access Scholarly Publishing Association, and the World Association of Medical Editors, have brought together a very nice set of principles of transparency and best practice in scholarly publishing. I recommend all to reference this. And they've created 4 domains of research integrity. Journal content, so the importance of a journal's name, that should be unique. A website that protects users and has high professional standards, that the publishing schedule for journals is very clear and kept up to date, that there is a preservation for journal content, and that's clearly indicated, that the copyright terms for published content are very clear, and that the licensing information and policy for published articles is made available. Second domain is journal practices. So we want journals to be clear about publication ethics and that policies are clearly available on websites. The peer review policy should be very clear, and any charges or registration required for access to articles is again clear to readers. The third domain is organization. Journals must clearly state the ownership and management of the journals. Editorial board members who are experts in the subject area should be clearly listed. And journals should provide contact information and full editor details. And then finally, business practices. Any charges in relation to manuscripts are clearly communicated to authors. Journals clearly state all revenue sources. Journals have a transparent advertising policy where advertising is prominent, and marketing to authors is appropriate, targeted, and unobtrusive. And you've heard much about peer review this morning and during the sessions today, and peer review is integral to the research integrity of academic publishing and needs to be protected. And it's the process, again, used by academic journals to ensure the quality and validity of research articles. It involves the evaluation of manuscript by multiple experts in the field who provide feedback and recommendations for improvement. And reviewers assess the artist's methodology, analysis, and conclusions to ensure that they are rigorous, accurate, and supported by data. And peer review is an important component of the scientific publishing process as it helps to ensure the credibility and integrity of the research that is published. We've also talked during a number of sessions on authorship, and accrediting and authenticating authorship is critical. According to the International Committee of Medical Journal Editors, an author must meet the following criteria: substantial contributions to the concept of design of work or the acquisition, analysis, or interpretation of data for the work, drafting the work or revising it critically for important intellectual content, final approval of the version to be published, an agreement to be accountable for all aspects of the work and ensuring that questions related to the accuracy or integrity of any part of the work are appropriately investigated and resolved. And we've also talked about the role and the importance of retractions, and I'll reiterate that here. Retractions play an important role in academic publishing by correcting errors or misconduct in research articles. A retraction is a notice that is issued by a journal or publisher to inform reader that a published article has been withdrawn or invalidated due to errors, misconduct, or other issues that affect the validity or credibility of the research. Retractions are typically issued when the research is found to be fraudulent, plagiarized, or contains major errors that render the findings unreliable. Retractions are also issued where there is evidence of ethical violations, such as the use of human subjects without proper consent or approval. And retractions help to maintain the integrity of the scientific literature by correcting errors, ensuring that readers have access to accurate and reliable information. If you've been following the industry news and generally articles published in publications like Nature and Science, you'll be understanding the fact that research integrity has hit the headlines recently. For example, Elsevier has experienced a retraction of papers when it realized that one of the authors hid the fact that they were a guest editor of an issue. Wiley and Dowley have had to retract over 1,200 papers for compromised peer review. Springer Nature had over 400 papers that had expressions of concern, and hundreds of predatory journals are indexed on a Scopus. And we talked about how prevalent predatory journals are and how it's important to be able to identify those. And scammers are impersonating guest editors to get sham papers published. So many, many others. And the point also to be made here is that no one publisher should be singled out. All publishers have been affected in the same way. And one of the factors that I think has been driving some of the challenges to research integrity has been the exponential use of special issues and guest editors, and the model, which does generate value, editorial value, but we should proceed with care. And publishers like MDPI, Frontiers, and Hindawi have made significant use of special issues over the last number of years. And the scale of the problem, this is an example of an anonymous publisher that shared some data. Again, all publishers have been affected in the same way. As an example here, there are 77 journals with this published that were affected in 2022, 7 journals under active investigation of fraudulent activity, and the average percentage of affected articles in each journal was 14%. The percentage of affected articles in a single journal were affected by potential fraud was 46%, and the lowest 2%. And the number of articles identified or published that were fraudulent, 457, 251 in one single journal, and the number of articles not yet published but identified as being fraudulent, 139, and 90 associated with one journal. So again, this is just giving you an insight into the prevalence of the problem. And the consequences for poor research integrity, this is the researcher's perspective. Well, it will be a major blow to researchers' reputation and career. The stigma can last for years, affecting their credibility to secure funding, publish in reputable journals, and even find employment. It can damage the reputation of the institution or organization with which the author is affiliated, leading to negative consequences for the institution as a whole. In cases of misconduct or fraud, researchers may face disciplinary actions such as suspension or termination of employment, loss of funding, or even legal consequences. Even in the cases of honest mistakes or errors, authors may lose credibility and the trust of their peers, which can make it more difficult to collaborate on future research projects or secure funding for their work. And the consequences for a publisher were similar. The damage to the reputation or the journal that is published, it leads to a loss of credibility and trust, making it more difficult for the publisher to attract high quality submissions. There are potential legal consequences if retracted articles contain fraudulent or plagiarized material. And if a retraction is due to errors or misconduct on the part of the author, the publisher may still face criticism for failing to adequately vet the article and ensure the accuracy before publication. And what are the drivers for unethical and fraudulent practices? So we need to recognize that there is an increasing and continued pressure on researchers to produce positive results. So these researchers may feel the pressure to produce positive results to advance their careers or secure funding, which may lead to biased or incomplete research. Conflicts of interest. Researchers may have financial or other conflicts of interest that could influence their research, such as receiving funding from a company that stands to benefit from the research outcome. Publication bias. Journals may be more likely to publish positive results, leading to an incomplete or biased representation of the research in the scientific literature. A lack of reproducibility. Some research findings may not be reproducible, either because the methods were not properly documented or because the results were not accurately reported. And plagiarism. Researchers may plagiarize the work of others or self-plagiarize their own work, which undermines the integrity of the scientific publishing process. We've also heard today about AI and ChatGPT and generative text tools, and it's unavoidable that we can talk in the context of research integrity and not address some of the challenges with generative text tools, and ChatGPT being the most prominent. It was released in November 2022 and has had an extraordinary influence on our discussions since then. For those of you who are not familiar with it, it's a chatbot essentially that uses a generative pre-trained transformer tool, GPT, and it's been trained on a massive corpus of internet source text. And the model can produce human-like text by recognizing patterns between words and using those patterns to speculate on what to write next in response to written prompt of instructions. And the risks include authors using the systems to create fraudulent articles. It's important to recognize that ChatGPT, although being the most famous or infamous, is only one of a number of generative text tools and what we call large language models that are out there. So it's part of a large, increasing body of these AI-powered tools. And ChatGPT is now learning on academic journal content. And so academic and scholarly journal content, both book and journal content, is beginning to be added exponentially to the corpus of knowledge that these tools are learning from. And so it's really important that the input that we give to this body of work is also addressing the standards of ethics and research integrity, whilst these tools then learn from the work that's published. And can a generative text tool be an author? Well, you may have seen earlier on this year that ChatGPT was listed as an author on a research paper. This is a nurse education and practice journal published by Elsevier, where we have two authors, a human being, Dr. O'Connor, and ChatGPT listed as an author. Naturally, there was quite a strong reaction from the publishing world to this. And this is certainly something where the publishers have come together very quickly to address the issues around authorship and authentication of authorship. We've also seen AI generating image fraud. And so this is an article published in Patterns, which talks about deep fakes and the continued threat to image fabrication in scientific publications. And Dr. Elizabeth Bick is a fantastic whistleblower, particularly around image and fraudulent image generation. She's been working tirelessly over the last 15 years to identify fraud in image publications. And the scale of the problem has only increased with the generation of these fraudulent images using AI tools. But on the flip side, let's think about the benefits of AI. We are also looking at journals adopting AI to spot duplicated images in manuscripts, to address the problem that has always been there in image manipulation, image fraud. And so AI here is used as a positive benefit by publishers to try and identify this. And overall, I do think publishers and editors will benefit from AI tools. Editorial offices will have the potential to automate repetitive and tedious tasks, managing large volumes of submissions, increasing the process efficiency, and developing more efficient peer review processes, which we've talked about again. For authors, it will help authors better match their submissions to more relevant journals, determining if the subject falls within the journal's scope, suggesting reviewers, assessing language quality, plagiarism, etc. And overall, I see a benefit for AI-powered tools in ensuring quality assurance, assessing the novelty of a study and checking for ethical compliance, copyright issues, and again, image duplication. So publishers have been called to action because of this incredible flux and dynamic of challenges that have been thrown, particularly in the last 12 months, thrown the way of publishers. And what we are seeing very nicely are publishers coming together to collaborate. So the STM Publishers Association, which is the professional body for the majority of STM publishers, created a STM Integrity Hub. They're bringing together best practices and experiences and case studies and recommendations and guidelines on how to address some of the challenges around research integrity. And again, Dr. Elizabeth Bick here is working together with publishers to generate other tools that will help us fight a flood, unfortunately, of fake academic papers. And so I said, publishers have come together very quickly, particularly around ChatGPT, pretending to be an author for a paper, and the publishers of Nature and Science issued a statement very, very quickly to say that ChatGPT does not and cannot meet that standard for authorship. We would not allow AI to be listed as an author on a paper. That is a very common communication, prompt communication from publishers. Other publishers, Taylor and Francis, and even Archive, the preprint server, have similarly addressed this issue that AI cannot be an author on a research paper. And the Committee on Publication Ethics has moved very quickly as well to issue a position statement on authorship and AI tools. And again, saying AI tools cannot meet the requirements for authorship. They cannot take responsibility for the submitted work. That's very obvious. And as non-legal entities, they cannot assert the presence or absence of conflicts of interest or manage copyright and license agreements. So that's super clear currently that AI cannot be an author on a paper. And we do have technology to support us more generally in identifying fraudulent practices. We have tools such as Similarity Check, Authenticate, and Turnitin. And also ChatGPT has generated its own tool to identify whether a text has been generated by AI. And I think they've done that in response to some of the negative responses, particularly from the scholarly publishing community. So they've moved quickly to create, if you like, an antidote to the potential problems with ChatGPT. And again, we're seeing community thought leadership, education and knowledge developing very, very nicely. This is just a range of conferences, workshops, webinars, where there's great sharing of insights into some of the challenges around research integrity, and particularly the role of AI and AI-powered tools conflating the problem. And we're also seeing thought leadership and education at the journal level. So we're seeing journal editors and authors within journal publications producing some very nice bibliometric studies, raising awareness around the challenges, for example, around paper mills, the challenges with AI, and also the fact that ChatGPT and other large language models can be this double-edged sword. They have benefits and they have problems associated with them. So education and thought leadership, very, very important now and for the future. In response also, in the last 12 to 14 months of the challenges that we're seeing the establishment of research integrity officers and officers. So this is Chris Graff, very well known within the publishing industry, very experienced, and he's now leading a team of 10 people at Springer Nature that are dedicated to research integrity, both to prevention, resolution, and also to educating. So they're producing a lot of educational material talking about research integrity and how to best approach that, whether you're an editor, an author, or a peer reviewer. Also, we are looking to publishers to be open and transparent when things go wrong. It is only inevitable, a fact of life, that things will go wrong. Fraudulent papers will slip through and be published. But what's important is that publishers react. And this is the Institute of Physics again, that has reacted very, very promptly to retract 350 papers where they identified fraudulent practice. So, and they also have put together a research integrity team with a research integrity officer, a head of peer review research and integrity. So looking ahead, how do we address these challenges? Well, researchers and institutions must adhere to rigorous ethical and professional standards, including proper data management and reporting, transparency and accountabilities. And journals and publishers must implement and enforce ethical guidelines and standards, such as the COPE guidelines, to ensure the integrity of the scientific publishing process. And I'll leave you with 8 recommendations for safeguarding research integrity. Firstly, continue to increase standards. So continue to implement rigorous ethical and professional standards. Again, COPE guidelines, ICMJE. Improve the peer review process. Adhere to strict peer review processes and to ensure the quality and the validity of the research that is published. Thirdly, to update guidelines. Provide clear guidelines for authors on ethical conduct and proper research reporting of research findings. Retract quickly. As I indicated with IIP and many other publishers will retract very quickly. It's inevitable there will be problems. It's important that you react quickly and retract quickly. And you should do transparently as well. Mandating ORCID. ORCID is the persistent identifier for an author and now also an institution. But I will always be recommending to publishers that I'm working with and journals that I'm working with to mandate ORCID where possible for authors, editors, and editorial board members. For publishers, appointing research integrity officers, as you've seen, has become more prominent and they're more visible and helping there as a resource, both internally and externally. Do leverage technology, explore the use of, but do not rely upon exclusively technologies. There are relevant tools that can help increase the economy, efficacy and effectiveness of publication processes, but it will always need a human intervention. And finally, educate. So educate all stakeholders, including authors, external academic editors and chief editorial boards and peer reviewers. So those would be my set of 8 recommendations for safeguarding research integrity. Thank you for your time and attention. I will take questions at the end of the session, but for the moment, we'll move on to the next presenter. Thank you.